Greek culture, Roman culture, the women, the wives, were not permitted to leave the house without their husband's permission. Okay? Women were basically property. This was not the case with Judean women. Judean women could leave the house of their own accord. Okay? Judean women had more rights back then than Greek or Roman women had. They still were considered lesser than men, but, they couldn't be educated like men and so on. They didn't have all the rights of men, but still. So husband hasn't come home. He was supposed to deliver the package and then come back home. I'm cooking a meal here. Where's my husband? This is where the with full knowledge of his wife comes into play. And Peter said to her, tell me whether you sold the land for so much. Oh. So he's given her a chance here. He's given her a shot. Yes, for so much. But Peter said to her, how is it that you have agreed together to test the Spirit of the Lord? This term he's using here, test the Spirit of the Lord, same term used when Jesus was saying, you shall not test the Lord your God. Okay? Mm-hmm. It can be summed up in don't mess with daddy. The boys know this very well because there are some days when daddy's in a pretty good mood and they'll be messing around and stuff and she'd be looking at me telling me to shut up. And I'm like, they're okay, it's okay. But there are some days when daddy's had a bad day and daddy comes home and the boys are running around and tearing stuff up. Don't mess with daddy. This is one of those times with God. Don't mess with God. Don't test. Yeah. And look at what he says here. The Spirit, big S, capital S, Spirit of the Lord. The Holy Spirit plays a really, really big leading part in Acts. Still here. Behold, and also, by the way, this is for those people who, and there are still some so-called churches, who say that there's no such thing as a Trinity. There's just Jesus. There's only Jesus. Right here, Peter is equating the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, with God. Okay? Why do you test the Spirit of the Lord? The feet of those who have buried your husband are at the door. They will carry you out. Immediately she fell down at his feet and breathed her last. Then the young men came in, or when the young men came in, they found her dead. Can you imagine? Okay, can you imagine being one of these young men? We just buried. Could you stop for half a second? I just want to get some water. Really? Found her dead and carried her out and buried her beside her husband. Once again, verse 11. And great fear came upon the whole church and upon all who heard of these things. Now, let's see what we're looking at here. Yeah, I'm out of time. The reason I was really wanting to get a lot further, just like I was last week, but there's so much in here. You have to, and I needed to hammer home the consistency of how God's consistency of how God dealt with the early Israelites and his early church. Very, very important. God, this is something that is very popular nowadays. Well, God should change with the times. God needs to get more modern and stuff like that. And many churches actually teach that kind of garbage. That God is hip and cool and changes with the times. And no. God is very, very plain all throughout the Bible. He states, I don't change. I am the Alpha and the Omega. I do not change. And there's, I can't remember exactly where it is, but there's one verse where he talks about, am I a man that I would change my mind? God doesn't have to change his mind because he is reality.
But he gives a lot of chances.
And you will see all throughout the Bible, from all the way to the beginning to all the way to the end, he's consistent. He's dealing consistently with his church here in Acts, the same way he dealt consistently with his fledgling nation, Israel, in Exodus. The Bible is one story all the way through, consistent. 66 books written over a period of 2,000 years by at least 40 different people, all telling the same story. So it's very important to note. Okay, that's it.